And this is what's important. So you have three people here. You have someone who's blind following, right? You have someone who's asking the scholars. And then you have someone we have four things. You have someone who's asking the scholars and making ijtihad, and you have someone who's making ijtihad. You understand? Let me go it again. You have someone who's blind following, making taqleed, like your children, and like some of us in some cases. You know, we don't know the proof. We just do what we were taught. Then you have someone who is blind following in some issues, and in some issues he's making ijtihad. Then you have the person who is, following the, who is not blind following at all, but he is making ijtihad. I missed something up there.
You're asking the scholar.
Right, the person who's asking, he's making taqleed, but he's making taqleed with dalil. That's the second person. He's making taqleed, but he's following with dalil. First person is making taqleed without dalil. Second person is making taqleed with dalil. Third person is making ijtihad and making taqleed with dalil. And the fourth person is just making ijtihad. Those are the senior scholars. Okay? So does that make sense? So this is what he's talking about. Those who don't have the ability to derive rulings. And this is the thing. People think they put themselves up, I can figure it out myself. You got to have some class, man. You got to be honest. We got to grow up. Stop putting yourself forward that you can derive the rulings. Did you learn that from someone? If you didn't, then you don't know. Okay? That's it. Don't tell me you read in Bukhari. You know, you have to learn how this istinbat is made. Okay? And usuls. So it says, fifthly, from the above, it is clear that we should not follow their opinions in all situations at all times, because they may make mistakes, but we may follow their views that are sound and based on evidence. This is what the Lajna says about that issue. It goes on. It says in another fatwa from the Lajna Da'ima, the standing committee, it says, whoever is qualified, note, qualified, to derive rulings from the Quran and Sunnah and has strong knowledge in that regard, even if it is with the help of the legacy of fiqh that we have inherited from earlier scholars of Islam, has the right to do that so he can act upon it himself and explain it in disputes and issue fatwas to those who consult him. Let's do that again. This is the talibul ilm. He said, whoever is qualified to derive rulings from the Quran and Sunnah and has some talibul ilms, I don't want to make a blanket statement, and has strong knowledge in that regard, even if it is with the help of the legacy of fiqh. What does that mean? He's following the madhahib, right? He's looking in the books of fiqh. And that we inherited from the early scholars. He has early scholars of Islam. He has the right to do that. Why? So he can act upon it himself and explain it in disputes and issue fatwas to those who consult him. This is what we were talking about earlier. We said a niyyah is to have to lift off ignorance for myself and those around me. Right? To lift ignorance off for myself and those around me. Okay? So people call you and say, so you need to know certain things, not to teach them, but for yourself. And if you know, since people know you for that, then you can use those things in consulting the other person. You don't give a fatwa from your own mind. I heard Sheikh so-and-so say so. Like I just came and got these fatwa for you guys. Right? And I'm saying them, explaining them, based on not just sitting on my own from lessons. So it goes on to say, whoever is not qualified to do that has to ask trustworthy people who so that he may learn the rulings from their books and act upon that. He has to ask trustworthy people. Allah says, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلِ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Go ask the people who know, and Ahl al-Dhikri is general, the scholars and their students, if you don't know. He says, without limiting his asking or reading to one of the scholars of the four madhahib. He just can't, because now this is called hizbi. Now he's become cliquish. He just go, I only want it from him. But truth may not be with him. No, if he ain't say it, I ain't following it. If it don't come from Imam Wadi Muhammad, I ain't following it. As some people say. Rahimahullah. Okay? If it don't come from, so-and-so, it don't come from, I ain't listening to it. If it don't come from Saudi, I ain't listening to that. You're hizbi. You're a cliquish, ignorant person. You've pigeonholed something that is open. Do you understand? If it don't come from Ghana, if it don't come from India, nah, we ain't on it like that. We follow the truth wherever it is. So from wherever it comes from. As long as it comes with what? Quran and Hadith. on the minhaj, on the way done by the salaf. So it says, without limiting his asking or readings to one of the scholars of the four madhahib, rather, people refer to the four imams because they are so well known and their books are well written and widely available. Okay? Then he goes on. Whoever says that we should limit following to the four madhabs is also mistaken. You see, he's also mistaken because he is restricting something that is broad in scope with no evidence for doing so. Didn't we just say he's pigeonholing something that is a lot wider than what he's saying? This is what the Lajna is saying. The standing committee. So don't just say, oh, Abu Talib said, no, the Lajna said it. I got it from them. And it says, with regard to the common uneducated man, and here uneducated means uneducated in Islamic law. You're not a faqih, you're not a mutafaqih, you haven't studied the issues of fiqh. It don't make a difference if you memorize the Quran. It don't make a difference if you just know the lugha. Law is totally different from that. Those are prerequisites, but that's not the end of it. You may go to pre-med school, but you're not a doctor. Do you understand? So he said, so this is what they mean by uneducated. Others will say, oh no, I got a PhD. No, I don't care if you got a PhD in math. You have a PhD in law, Islamic law. So it says, there is no difference between the four imams and others such as Layth ibn Sa'd, Awza'i, and other fuqaha. And he mentions these two people who were famous during their time. They're not so famous nowadays, but some people said that Layth was more knowledgeable than Imam Malik. Al-Awza'i had his own madhab. So these are things. So we get to the next question. It says, so what should I say if somebody asks me about my madhab? We get this, right? So what should I say? If somebody says, what's your madhab? What madhab you from? They ask you like you in LA or something like that. Say, what neighborhood, what colors you flying? This ain't a gang thing. We not at odds with each other. Y'all Maliki, man. It's not like that, right? So what? Some people, did you know, in some places, if you say you're Maliki and this other person says he's Shafi, he ain't letting his daughter marry you. They ain't going to pray behind you. Do you understand that? Even if you tell them, well, these guys were students of each other. I ain't listening to that cat. You Shafi. Get out the room. Get out. You hear what I said? This is nut stuff, right? So he says here, very often I'm asked by some of the brothers who come to the United Kingdom, he's talking about Saudi Arabia, as foreign workers about my madhab. Am I Hanbali or Shafi'i? In fact, I'm completely ignorant about this matter, and it's sufficient for me to say that I'm a Muslim. Okay, this is the questioner. He's saying, if I have a problem with regards to some religion, I ask scholars. But he's living. You understand this? This question is posed by someone who lives in Saudi Arabia. He's got scholars like we got criminals. You know what I'm saying? Serious. They got probably more scholars than we got crackheads. Because that's the place where people go for education, right? So it breeds scholardom. And it's good. Tulab go there. You got Mecca and Medina there. Burayda. You got lots of different places where people go to study. So he's saying, I don't know. I'm just following the scholars. Is he wrong? Based on what we know now, is he an idiot? No, it's comfortable. That's cool. I ain't got to worry about nothing. I just go ask. Who wouldn't want that? I ain't got to worry about nothing. Just go ask. Got to read a book in my life, except the Quran. So he says, this is what I do. So they answer him. They say, Alhamdulillah. It is sufficient for you to be a Muslim who follows the Sharia. With regards to Hanbal or Shafi madhabs, you do not have to restrict yourself to that. Those four scholars have a high status that is well known throughout this ummah. Their words were written down and followed by their companions and followers and became madhabs that were recognized and known, even though they were agreed upon. What does it say here? No, don't hit that. Don't hit that. Go to the top. Let me do it. Nah, it's going to mess my computer up. Yeah, slide. Let me do it. These computers, man.
Just get rid of it.
I don't know how to get rid of it. So it says here, those four scholars, okay, what does it say? Their words were written down and they followed by their companions and followers and became madhabs that were recognized and known, even though they were agreed on. They were agreed on. Don't do that, man. It's gonna mess the computer up. Don't do it. It's gonna go by itself. It's inshallah. It will. It says, look. Even though they agreed upon matters in belief and tawheed. They agreed upon those things, okay?